In episode 2, Mrs. Cordelia Hill, aka Queen Mother, discussed her experiences as a child during Christmas as well as living through the Depression. We also discussed one of the most devastating tornado occurrences in Ohio. In this episode, we will be introduced to her children, from her firstborn, my mama, Nelia Jackson, down to her seventh child, Stephanie Stills. Each of my aunts and uncles will share their perspective on what it was like growing up with this powerful woman. I'd like to dedicate this episode to my Aunt Carol, Queen Mother Dee Dee's youngest child, who passed away February 13th, 2007. Even though we don't hear her voice today, her legacy lives on in her 3 spectacular children.
Whenever you're down, out in the cold, faithless and dark, your story's untold. Come take my hand and walk there with me. I know a place where we can be free.
I'm Mimi Jax. You may know me from my podcast, Mproper Mimi, where I have discussions about empowering women at home, work, or play. This podcast is a little different. Join me as I speak with the Queen Mother, my grandmother, Mrs. Cordelia Hill, about different experiences of her 92 years of life. You'll also be hearing from some of her children on how she's helped to shape their lives as well. Gems will be dropped and lessons will be learned. Get ready to want to adopt Mrs. Hill as your Queen Mother. This is the legacy of Dee Dee. Tell me your name and how you're related to Dee Dee, aka Queen Mother.
My name is Nelia Jackson, and I am her firstborn daughter, oldest of 8 children.
My name is Conrad Hill, and I am the second oldest.
My name is Cheryl Louise Hill DePass, and I'm her daughter. I am the third born child of Cordelia Marie Thompson Hill.
Marie Ann Hill Freeman, and I was born the 4th child out of 8.
I am Richard Henry Lee Hill Jr., and Cordelia Marie Hill is my mother. I'm number 5.
My name is Jacqueline Hill Bradley, and Cordelia Hill is my mother. I am the 6th child out of 8.
My name is Stephanie Grace Stills. Cordelia's my mother. I am number 7 out of 8 kids.
And these are the voices of the legacy. In recent years, there has been a great discussion about siblings living in the same household and having completely different childhood experiences. As HuffPost wrote in an April 5th, 2023 article, the family circumstances a child is born into often differ from when their younger sibling arrives. For example, economic changes may make siblings feel like their childhoods weren't the same. Emotional shifts in parenthood can play a significant role as well. Siblings are often born at different phases in their parents' lives, so they might be treated differently. I can see this played out simply by looking at my sister, who never has received a whooping, while I, Mimi Jax, on the other hand, I've gotten them all. Or even in the assistance my mother was able to provide her grandchildren while she was still working full-time, such as when my daughter was young, versus the freedom she had to care for her other grandchildren once she was retired. So I was definitely curious as to how my aunts and uncles felt over the duration of 40-plus years Queen Mother Dee Dee raised her children.
Apparently, from all that I've heard, I was super spoiled. I did not have to do a lot of work around the house. I never really learned to cook or clean. I had sort of an easy life. I went to school, did my homework, no big deal.
For me, it was a great childhood. She encourages, us to go out in the woods and check out nature, that kind of stuff. I liked it in the country.
What was it like being raised by Cordelia? Let's see. Fearful? Religious? By the time I came along, got older, Mom was working, and I mean, she was always home every night. Well, not every night, because sometimes, church camp and things like that. But she traveled a lot too for church.
I'm not going to say she was a mean mother because she wasn't, but she did yell a lot. One of her favorite sayings was, you kids make me sick and tired, so I'm guessing by the time she got to me, number 6, yeah, she was tired. Cordelia, or Queen as she likes to be called, was 37 when she had me. So there's 7 years between me and Jackie, 7 years between me and Carol, where everybody else is like 2 or 3 years apart. So, it's a little different because it's like everybody's older than you.
As mentioned in episode 2, Queen Mother Dee Dee was raised during the Great Depression era. Per the website United States Now, they found that most of the children who survived the Depression carried the scars of that era well into their adulthood. One of the symptoms of the Great Depression was being very frugal and not being able to throw things away. I asked my mother and her siblings if they found this to be a true reflection in their childhoods.
Because of that, she held on to material things or food or whatever to a degree because she would say, well, you never know. You'd be like, but it's broke. But you never know. Her, and I don't know how much of it was depression and how much of it was maybe having that many kids, but she always stocked food. And if you go to her refrigerator and freezer now, she's stocked. And that could be a part of that whole thought process. You don't really think about that stuff as you're growing up necessarily. I think so now because there were times growing up where she never turned anything down and she didn't like to throw anything away. So, there was always a use for something, even if she didn't know what it was at the time. I'm going to accept that because I might need that or I could use that, even though I don't necessarily need it right now. Depression era times, where people didn't have as much stuff as they were. I think back then I thought it was more economics for us and not just depression, but a matter of having, so many kids and economically how much could you afford or what could you afford. Things that we had, I had hand-me-downs and secondhand stuff. And, there were times during the year where I did get new clothes. It was always at the beginning of school and always Easter. We always got new clothes then. The rest of the years, she couldn't understand why, I couldn't wear Cheryl's old shoes. Because my feet are much bigger than Cheryl's, so I need new stuff. I'm sure the Depression era had something to do with it, but I think for me back then, I thought it was more just economics.
She definitely knew how to stretch whatever we had. I mean, food or resources. When I was younger, I would say stone soup. I'd like, where did she get this food for dinner? I didn't see anything. How did she fix this? Looking back now, I could see how she saves a lot. Almost as if in Depression era, you weren't sure where you were going to get food or you weren't sure when you would get to go to town. It's collecting a lot in case you need it for later.
When you're raised by people from the Depression era, you look at things a little differently, because you go long periods without. Me, I give everything away. I keep nothing. If I move, I give everything away. If people need it, they can have it. I don't care for that type of stuff. So I guess I'm the other way with Depression era. God provides.
Another characteristic of being raised in the Great Depression is the large focus on education, especially higher education. As Queen Mother stated in episode 1, education was very important to her.
For me, she was an intellect, so I strived to be as smart as her. I know I'm not, but her intellect was a big thing for us growing up. And I think most of us took it seriously. She always wanted us to do well in school, but she didn't, get upset if it was not that good sometimes. One thing that she also did, she said she really didn't do this, but I think she expected all of us to go to college. I didn't even think about it. I just knew I was going to go to college after high school.
Part of that importance of education may have just been so inherent that it's like part of our DNA. So, clarification, the education wasn't taken for granted, but it was assumed you will get an education. I can appreciate more of how much she did for all of us, raising us, and all of us graduating from college, and how she went back and got her degree after all of us had one or two degrees.
One of the most beautiful and consistent facets of Queen Mother Dee Dee is how she celebrates religion and Christian values. And when it came to paying attention in church, Queen Mother did not play.
We were raised in the East Main Street Christian Church, and it was mandatory. And eventually, you had to attend Sunday school, then you had to attend church, and you had to attend the afternoon service. And before the afternoon service, the moms would get together and they would bring their food and we would have their meal. And it was delicious. But, we slept through some of those afternoon services, which was fine because we were full. We were too tired to whisper and chitter chatter like we did in the morning services. Guarantee you, wherever we were, Cordelia would let us know, do not chatter. If she was sitting on the same pew, that hand would reach 20 feet and we jump and we get a little pinch.
We used to travel a lot with the church, choir competitions overnight, going to weekend retreats, Cincinnati or other cities, staying with families, that kind of stuff you forget. But we used to just go to just different churches and sing for fun. I tell you what I did get from Mom, though, was a sense of quick reflexes.
For Easter, she would always dress us all up. I don't know, she got these clothes. She dressed us up really nice in these little tiny suits because I was really small then. She would always be sure everybody was ready and looking good. And then, get in the car. She would always say that, get in the car now.
In the final episode, Mrs. Cordelia's Hill children will be discussing her love of the historical aspects of genealogy and if they feel like our ancestors have shaped them into who they are today. We also talk about what character trait they have adopted from Queen Mother Dee Dee over the years. And finally, their favorite Queen Mother story.
She came and told the principal, I bought that dress, and she'll wear that dress as often as she wants to. Later at home, we were talking about it in the house, and she had on a mini dress. And she said to Daddy, I don't understand. What do you think? Do you care if I wear this mini dress? And he said, if you want to show your ass, it's your ass to show.
Thank you for joining me in this episode of The Legacy of Dee Dee. This series is brought to you by Mproper Mimi, where my mission is to empower women at home, work, and play. Learn more at mpropermimi.com, that's Mproper with an M, where you will also have the power to support this content and more by making a Buy Me a Coffee donation.